with so much attention to the General Assembly within the area we have anything about. There were several races with a lot of attention: the 56th House, the 22nd Senate, and the 17th Senate district that rolls all the way up there into the Blue Crescent. And Bryce Reeves won a re-election, not handily, but with a decent margin. Certainly, it wasn't when you first won, and we were waiting to see if there would be a recount. And he's on the phone with us. Good morning, Senator Reeves. How are you, sir?
Well, good morning, Joe. And guess what? The sun is shining again today.
Yeah, the rose in the same place in the sky as well. But that being said, there's a lot of folks who I'm trying to point out that rule of law, generally speaking, is why, whether Democrats or Republicans hold the governorship or the General Assembly, there are just certain things that don't get changed. And maybe we're at a tipping point with that, with some of the efforts on the Commonwealth's attorneys' races, in this idea of ignoring law and just doing whatever you want, kind of like they do in Zimbabwe. But that said, talk about the new majorities in the Senate and the things that you as a senator can do to make sure that we all of a sudden don't, ignore the Second Amendment, and we don't, open up, what did Dick Sazla say, more abortion clinics than Starbucks the other day up there in Sterling. What can you do? Are there parliamentary procedures? Are there things within the construct of the Senate, even as the minority party again, that you can do?
Oh, certainly. But first, let me just say this, Joe, because you're actually getting the first spot post-election, is thank you to all those who voted for us yesterday, came out, worked hard. And for those who didn't vote for us, who are disappointed about the outcome of the election on the 17th, I'm still your senator, and I'll continue to work for the good of all the citizens in the 17th district. That being said, we now move from a majority to a minority, from leading to holding the majority, the new majority, accountable. And yeah, you're absolutely correct. There are rules of the Senate; those will be rewritten. Last time the Democrats took control of the Senate, they rewrote the rules and changed, I don't know how many years, 50 years of rules that were there. You've seen some of that play out in Congress with the way they're doing the impeachment hearings in the House and some of that. So. We'll have to go along with some of that, because the reality is, when you win the majority, you make the rules, and but we can work to hold the minority responsible and accountable, and I think you're seeing some of that from some of those in the Republicans on Capitol Hill in D.C.
Well, let me.
I would also.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to ask about, up until about 2-3 months ago, everything I had heard from members of the Democratic Party was that they needed the courts to weigh in to force a nonpartisan redistricting commission. Do you think that goes away now?
You know what? For all those people, Virginia 2021, and everybody that was complaining about districts being drawn. Make note that we're having this conversation today, and when we get in there in January to see if that referendum, that bill comes back through after an intervening election, if it comes through the same way or if it gets changed. My gut tells me they're going to stonewall it, they're going to kill it, they're not going to let it through. And because, they will feel, the left will feel like this is a referendum on all their agendas. And all that stuff is going to come through, Joe. There's only so much stuff that we can do. But this is also a rallying cry, I think, for our side. And the reality is, what we know in our head and what we know in our heart, oftentimes that's the longest journey. And I think Republicans that sat out yesterday, that felt sorry for themselves or whatever, they're going to feel the the results of those reactions swiftly in January. And, unfortunately, you're going to be able to say, I told you so, why didn't you listen? Kind of like our children sometimes, when you tell them the burner on the stove is hot and they touch it anyway, they got to learn through doing it. And it'll be some time before we can get a majority back. It's going to be unfortunate, but that's where we go.
Well, Bryce, and we're visiting with Senator Bryce Reeves. Can I hang on to you? I know you said we're the first visit.
Sure.
This morning. All right, Senator Bryce Reeves. There's so many more things I want to get into with him that I want to do that and then come right back to him. Bryce Reeves and the re-election to the Virginia Senate on the Newsmakers line with us. And you were talking about the district drawing and how that referendum, that constitutional amendment might get delayed. And I can already hear well, it doesn't go far enough, and it was watered down, and it wasn't good enough, and paying no attention to what we were doing, and we're going to kill it ourselves because we want to do something better in 10 years. But you mentioned it could be some time before conservative-minded folks can take over the majority in the Senate. What is driving this? Is it this idea that voting for somebody is going to make us less poor? Are we becoming a socialist state that believes that my poverty is a fait accompli, and the only way I'm going to be able to get a little bit more something is if I vote for the right person?
I think it's actually simpler than that, Joe. I think it has to do with how to run an election. Mm-hmm. How to get people out and coalesce, and how to do that sort of stuff. I mean, look at Nick Freitas, who ran a write-in campaign, one of the pretty historic. And I think it has to do with great candidate recruitment, right? We've got to get the right people running for office. If you look at the Democrats, they coalesced quickly. They had millions of dollars pour in throughout the country, so they can unite their base, not just in their area, but throughout the country, to give their treasure to campaigns that don't have real impacts to them if they're in California or New York. We don't do that. In fact, we primary each other just out of spite sometimes, I think. So we're going to continue to learn the hard lessons of how to win if we consider, the way that we're doing our plan now. And we've got to wake up, and we've got to know that we're getting schooled in the art of campaigning and some of these and how to win elections, and the Dems playbook is pretty good. I mean, I'm a football coach. I get it.
Well, I mentioned,
we understood how they were doing it. So
I mentioned, the Bob McDonnell in 2009, and how that the campaign, although three technically independent campaigns, they worked it as a triumvirate, and there was never a week that went by that Bob McDonnell, Bill Bowling, or Ken Cuccinelli was not visiting your community and holding a rally. And I think that as close to door knocking for a statewide race, but you did the same thing in the 17th district, and really had to wear out the shoe leather to do it. Is it as simple as that? Because you mentioned Nick Freitas, and I know that we're going to be watching some of the social justice prosecutors that won down this way, but, he said it the best one day on the House floor.
Because when the policies fail to produce the results you are promising to your constituents, you'll be back with...
And I know he was talking about gun legislation there, but I think it's an apt expression for what happens is somebody says, hey, vote for us and you'll be less poor, and then 10 years later they're still just as poor, but they're still voting for the same party, hoping for different results. How do we break through that wall of I just want my team to win, no matter what?
Well, I think we've done that. I mean, we had Latinos for Reeves for the first time. We had our first showing of that. We had probably 60 folks come out for that. We've crossed the aisle. We've converted voters. We had a young lady that voted Democratically her whole life, found out she ran into a tough time, looked to the Democrats for help, and they snubbed their nose at her because she's a minority and some of these other things. And we helped her solve the issue. And I think that's what it is if you look at our race as a microcosm of the bigger on how it's bringing people together and showing real solutions to real problems. And we had a lot of crossover voting. I know for a fact we did. And it's just breaking that barrier of what people assume you are based on a label they want to put on you. And until we do that, until we show where we lead and make that journey, as I talked about, from the head to the heart, what we know in our head and what we know in our heart, until we can articulate that to the voting base, we're going to stay in the wilderness for a while. And I think it's going to take leadership that can set a vision for Virginia to bring us back to prosperity, because we're about to go into into the troughs, I think, and that stuff's going to pass. But
a friend of mine sent me a text. He said VA Jersey, and I don't know if it's VA Jersey or VA Fornia, but where we are, though, you talk about leadership, and I will confess, it was 2013 the last time a Republican Party cashed a check of mine. So I'm not claiming membership. I will also point out that in 2016, it was the Republican Party of Virginia that had me removed by security from their hotel because I had the temerity to interview, Virgil Goode and Jim McKelvey and Ken Cuccinelli, who was actually the chair of the convention committee. But the Republican Party of Virginia was insistent that that was verboten and I was breaking the rules, so they had me removed from a hotel. These are the kind of things, and then somewhat of the attitude. They mailed it in the last months of the Romney campaign, or they allowed Romney to do it, and they seem to be loath to have the president do anything. I know that your opponent made hay out of pictures of you with President Trump, and it didn't seem to work there. Is there a lesson there in not necessarily the style of Donald Trump, but in the efforts of know what you stand for, be passionate for it, be unapologetic for it, and make your case and answer every question? I mean, the president doesn't even dodge questions from Jim Acosta. He seems to revel in this kind of stuff. Are there lessons the GOP or the conservative-minded in Virginia should take from that?
Absolutely. If you continue to stand for what I deem as the hard right over easy wrong every time, people will respect you for it. They might not agree with you, but they'll respect you for it. And I think that's what it's about. And you're absolutely right. My opponent came after me. Do I support the president? 100%. Do I like what he says all the time? Not necessarily. But the bottom line is he's delivering results to the American people, and there's no doubt about that. And Republicans have been delivering results, just not to where the base was looking at them and saying, wow, they're actually doing that. I think they kind of took Republican control kind of, I don't know, I guess they just thought they took it for granted, and now we're going to all see what it's like to go into the wilderness. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but it's going to take leadership from the top, leadership from the grassroots to stand up, bond together, get us going. You mentioned RPV. We've got to fix RPV. I mean, that's the bottom line. We've got to fix it. We got to come together, or we're not going to see a Republican majority in the Senate in a while, or the House.
Some long hair from Virginia said we need to stand together, or surely we shall all hang separately. But I think he may have been from Massachusetts back when it was a conservative state. Last one for you, Bryce, and I know a lot of people, because we root for the home team, kind of feel like Houston Astro fans right now. I can't believe we lost, but it's not about that. I look at races where Robert Tracy here in Charlottesville in Albemarle gets 5,000 more votes than he got 4 years ago when he won, and Jim Hingley, his opponent, actually gets more votes than were cast in the last Commonwealth Attorney's race. Quickly before we have to go, talk about the turnout and understanding that there's still probably 50% of the electorate untapped.
Oh, absolutely, and people just turn off. I mean, they watch this fake news. They get tired of listening to people fighting all the time. I can't tell you how many people I talked to at the polls yesterday are just like, can't you guys just each other? And I'm like, but the American people like that sort of stuff. For some reason, they denounce it, but they want it at the same time. They like drama and the soap operas and fighting and those sort of things. It's like reality TV. But the truth is, if we're going to actually get it done and get the things done that we need to do to make Virginia stay the number one state in the nation to be good for business, then we've got to keep right to work, which I think is greatly in jeopardy, and those sort of things that make the business climate successful. Because I can guarantee you today, there are a lot of business owners out there going, what the heck just happened to us? And they're unsure about the future, because business, if there's anything that business people like myself understand, we want stability. We want to know what the rules are. Sometimes we don't care if you change the rules. We just need to know how to do that and what kind of environment we're playing in. So it's a different world today because of the unknown and that hard left, that socialist left that's been getting elected now, what they want to do. So I think you're going to see some turmoil. I think you'll see some of Virginia's numbers change with regard to rankings on certain things. It's a sad day, but it's also a bright day for me because I know that the people of the 17th District reelected me, and it's truly an honor. It was fantastic at the last night at our event. The people that came out, the people that love us from both sides of the aisle, and independents too, and they said that they couldn't buy the 17th District. We got outspent 5-1. My opponent put $120,000 of her own money in. I mean, they wanted this seat, but they couldn't get it because it's the people's seat, and the people spoke, and we'll continue to lead.
Well, Bryce, thank you very much. BryceReeves.com as well, and we'll continue to follow this as the General Assembly convenes in January. But have a great Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you before then, sir.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you for listening, and to all of our veterans, for all of us who appreciate the liberties that you have gone off to war and put yourself in harm's way to fight for. Thank you on this Veterans Weekend. For all of us here at the Virginia Institute for Public Policy, my name is Joe Thomas. Until next week, so long, and thanks for all the fish.